All right, we are going to run through a kind of a unique core workout. We're going to use a lot of what are called anti-core movements, where the whole idea is that we're going to try to keep fixed in position while other things move around us. So instead of a traditionally like a crunch or a leg raise where all the action is actually creating some movement at the spine and engaging everything here, this is all about creating some stability so that when something is trying to separate and compromise this position, we're able to pull that and reinforce it really, really quickly. So it's going to be 3 individual movements. These are not going to be strung together as a circuit. If you run them as a circuit, you're going to experience such a dramatic drop off, or you start losing the benefit behind it. So you're just going to take each of these movements one at a time. You'll do a set, you'll take a rest, you'll do a set, and you'll move on. The intention here is you're only going to start with about 2 rounds of each movement, because likely you're going to have to build up your work capacity a little bit. The first thing we're going to start with, if you have one of these, is an ab wheel. If you don't have one, go to Target, go to Walmart, go to Amazon, get one for $6. This is about the only piece of equipment I've ever seen on an infomercial that's actually worth the cost of it. But what it's going to do is it's going to force you to, while your body is being pulled toward the floor, you have to hold this position. So the way that you want to set this up correctly is that the only thing that should not move is this. Well, you're going to grab the handles, you're going to bring your chest right over the wheel. So your starting position is with your hips in front of your knees and the wheel underneath your chest. We do not want to break at our hips and come back here, because then we've immediately sacrificed all that tension. I would rather see fewer reps done correctly than doing 50 reps but having it look like crap. So we're going to go here, and then we're going to pull ourselves essentially into a plank position. Think, tighten up our abs and tighten up our glutes. We're going to use our arms to push the wheel away from us, and we're going to go as far forward as we have the strength to maintain. There's a body weight movement, so you can't really adjust the resistance level. So you're going to start by just adjusting the range of motion. The stronger you are, the farther out you're going to be able to go. So our intention is to ideally be able to get all the way into a straight arm position where our nose is going to be right above the floor. So as I come out, I'm rolling the wheel, but I'm trying not to lose the position in my abs. So I push out. I want to get as close to the floor as I can, and then pull back so the wheel is underneath my chest. Now, if you don't have the strength to go that far out, you would simply go as far out as you can. As soon as you feel like you're going to start breaking form, you pull yourself back. So again, we're going to take a deep breath in on the way out, and then we're going to exhale as we pull back up. Your goal is to do as many as you can with good technique. I would generously say somewhere around like 6 to 10 reps, especially if you're first getting started on this, is probably a pretty realistic target. Expect the number of reps you're doing to decline with every round that you do. Start with 2 rounds, you can always build yourself up from there. So that's movement number 1. The second movement, so now we're going to create some rotational force. So we're doing what's called a Pallof hold. So I'm going to use this with a band, just because unless you have access to a cable station, which we don't in here, and if you're doing this at home, you definitely don't, you want something that's pretty practical. A band like this is pretty cheap. You can anchor it to a door, you can anchor it to something that just won't get easily pulled over. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a knee, and I'm going to try to line myself up so that when I'm starting the movement, where I'm going to start with my hands at my chest, it runs in a straight line with whatever the anchor is. So I've got this anchor to a rack. So at the beginning, that's at a relatively straight line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to exhale, and I'm going to push this band out. So now the band is going to want to pull me this direction, and my job is simply just to counter that. Okay, if I want to make it tougher, I'm going to slide out this way. So like for example, that's not a super challenging position for me, so I want to be here. Posture up, chest up, shoulders back. I extend out into it, and I'm simply just going to hold for time. Okay, so besides using my abdominals, I'm also using my obliques, and I'm also using my glutes to counter this rotation here. So I'm going to start with a goal of 30 seconds on each side, and I'm going to try to build my way up to potentially up to 60 seconds. If you can go beyond 60 seconds, you want to just increase the thickness of the band. There's really not a tremendous amount of value in doing these holds for minutes at a time. Okay, if you can do that, you're better off progressing to something that's just tougher to do. Okay, so I do one side, and then I would simply just rotate. Same rules would apply, and then I would extend it off of the opposite side. So there's, again, movement number 2. Start with 2 rounds. Make sure you obviously do both sides. If you notice that one side is tougher on a single side of movement, get in the habit of doing that side first. Okay, if I only got 40 seconds with my right knee down, then I want to make sure I'm not going beyond 40 seconds when my left knee is down. Okay, if that's the weaker side. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to add to an imbalance. So the final movement is going to be focusing on creating some stability more through our glutes rather than through our abs. Our abs aren't the only part of our core. Okay, core is anything that stabilizes your pelvis and your spine, so the glutes are going to play a role on that. So we're going to finish off with a marching glute bridge. So we're going to set our feet flat on the ground. We're going to bridge up. I want tension in my glutes. I want my hips fully up and extended without creating an excess arch in my lower back. So I want to be right about here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a marching position where one foot is going to come up off the ground and the knee is going to pull into the chest so that this glute has to shoulder the load and not let anything come out of alignment. And then I slowly come down. And then I just want to shift my weight now into the other side of the glute. But you do this slowly so that, as you can see when I'm going through it, you can't really notice my upper body moving. There's no compensating and rocking back and forth. It's this very deliberate, very methodical movement. Again, my goal is to keep my hips up and extended without letting it turn into extension through our spine. Okay, I'm just going to rotate back and forth, shooting for somewhere likely in like a 10 to 15 rep range. The goal here is not necessarily to exhaust your glutes. The goal is to get used to transferring weight around without breaking up our position. So a lot of the stuff that you're doing here, you're going to get fatigued and you might get sore from it, but you don't necessarily need to go to all out. Okay, you go until you can no longer keep focus and keep things positioned where they're supposed to, whether the muscle has completely exhausted itself or not. So it's a little bit of a different way to set up a core workout, but it's got some tremendous carryover. So give it a shot.